Hey guys, how's it going? So, it's 2026, at least provided you're not watching this in the future, which you might be. But anyway, when I'm recording this, it's 2026. But most people leave out the end of that statement, which is that it's 2026 AD, or CE, depending on how much of a fucking Redditor you want to be. Or as I like to call it, 2026 Jesus o'clock. But here's an amusing question. What if the number that the year that it is not the number that it is? Sorry, my mouth words aren't working, let me try again. What if it isn't 2026? Or at least, what if it could be another number? What if we used a different calendar? And would it be better, or at least cooler, if we did? Let's talk about it. Okay, so we use the Gregorian calendar. Not that Greg, different Greg. There's always another Greg. Anyway, the Gregorian calendar is the calendar that's got 12 months, and once every 4 years, February has a leap day in it, except for years which are divisible by 100, like 1800 or 1900. Those don't have a leap year, except if they're also divisible by 400, like the year 1600 or 2000, in which case they do have a leap year again. Seems kind of complicated, but it just stops the days and months and stuff from drifting over time. Otherwise, we'd end up with like March in the middle of the summer or something eventually. This was the issue with the Julian calendar, which is the calendar that we had before the Gregorian calendar. That one did have leap years, but it didn't do the whole complicated back and forth with whether or not you'll have one. It just had one every 4 years without exception, so it kept drifting, and we ended up correcting it when we moved to the Gregorian calendar, but in doing so, there's like a bunch of days in 1582 that never actually existed, or whatever the fuck, because we went from one calendar to the other. Whatever, it's complicated. Anyway, the whole Gregorian calendar thing of having exactly the right number of leap days to make all the years work out and keep the whole thing accurate is really intelligent, I think. I know there are some people that quibble with whether we should have 12 months or not, because originally, before even the Julian calendar, there was the Roman calendar, which only had 10 months in it, and we kept the names of some of them, which is why October is still called October, even though it's now the 10th month and not the 8th month, which is why it has Oct in it, which makes it kind of confusing. Same thing for like September and November and December, like they were named after the numbers, but they're now not on the right number anymore. Whatever, naming aside, the 12-month system is pretty good. I know some people argue that we should use 13 months instead, because things are arguably slightly neater if you do that, but I think they can fuck the fuck off right back to Bumfucksville. I'm a number 12 supremacist, alright? Where my duodecimal motherfuckers at? Anyway, sorry, none of this is even the point of what I'm trying to make a video about. What I'm trying to make a video about is whether or not the year 1 should be where we currently have the year 1. Now, fair enough, if you're Christian, it makes sense, and a lot of the big philosophical thinkers from times gone by have been Christian, or just religious in general, so it makes sense that the calendars we've ended up with have some kind of religious element to them. Anyway, what I'm saying is that from our enlightened future where everything makes sense and we never do anything stupid, why the f*** does the entire world have a calendar that formats itself around the beliefs of one particular religious tradition? Just because the Jews summoned Exodia or whatever the fuck it is that happened, now they get to decide what all time is called from now until forever? What the fuck? But are there any better options? Well, one idea might just be to start from the beginning of when the universe existed, which is about 13.8 billion years ago. Now, I know that's a big number to write, but we could just say it's B13 M800 T1 Y1 or whatever, and then just count up from there, and only probably actually write the last 3 numbers until we get to the next millennium, in which case it becomes the second millennium? Should it be T or should it be M? M for millennium, but then what would million be called? I don't know, something like that anyway, where you don't have to write out the full fucking thing every single time, at the expense of maybe confusing some archaeologists in the far future. Now, you could do this. I always find it slightly weird to use years to count most of time when most of time didn't have a planet Earth, and therefore conceptually years don't really make a huge amount of sense because there wasn't an Earth to go around a sun back then. But whatever, that's never stopped us before, so let's just say we do that. The bigger issue is that there are huge error bars on when exactly the Big Bang happened, if it even was the Big Bang, something kind of vaguely similar to that, some kind of cosmic inflation event of some variety. Like if we suddenly figure out it was only 13.7 billion years ago, do we change the calendar and now all the previous dates are wrong, or do we not change the calendar and everything will always be wrong? We could do this for how long the Earth has been here, but that has a similar problem. We've still got error bars millions of years wide. We could look to evolutionary history and just decide when humans actually first showed up, but that again has pretty huge error bars, because it turns out a fucking monkey doesn't just give birth to a guy one day. Actually, humans didn't evolve from monkeys. Humans and monkeys both evolved from a common ancestor. I was saying it for comedic effect, you tedious fuck. But then someone realized, hold on, what if we base a calendar on the present epoch that we're in? Because we're currently in the holocene. It's basically the interglacial period that happened that allowed humanity to become the absolute fucking powerhouse that it currently is. The possibility for human civilization to begin properly happened when the climate significantly changed all at once, and I'll shitload of ice melted and everything got a lot warmer. And when that happened, that was the beginning of the holocene, which is the epoch in which we are currently living. And god damn, it's pretty peak. I know I'm biased because I live in this one, but this is the epoch you'd make an anime adaptation out of, you know? There's a lot of shit going down. Anyway, there was kind of a happy accident with the holocene because it started about 12,000 years ago, which means if you don't want to change anything else about the Gregorian calendar, you just want to change the name of the year that it is, you can take the name of the current year and just put a 1 in front of it, and this is what's called the holocene calendar. It's pretty neat. It takes almost no effort whatsoever. It takes what could be a geopolitical nightmare of a problem and actually comes up with an incredibly simple solution. And the great thing about the holocene calendar is that it actually correctly puts everything into perspective. See, I'll speak for myself. When I use the Gregorian calendar, as soon as years start going backwards, it's kind of like when you see a photo in black and white, it doesn't feel quite as real somehow. Like Greece was doing what in 500 BC? Who gives a shit? It's BC. Time went backwards. Who gives a fuck? And then it got to the year 1 and there was Jesus. And then it's time that we start actually thinking seriously about. But human history stretches back more than 10,000 years. And in order to understand our place in history at least a little bit better, really we should understand where humans came from and how long it took us to get from being essentially just wild animals with big fucking brains to where we are now. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal. Press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this.
You're trespassing on my property! You didn't win shit in my yard!
Wait.
All of you!
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
Alright, thanks. Back to the video. To put this in perspective, Göbekli Tepe was built in year 500 in the Holocene calendar, and it wasn't abandoned until the year 2000. Already that feels different from saying it was BC something to BC something else. Like imagine in the usual Gregorian calendar how long ago the year 500 and something was, and now imagine that one site had people in it for that long. It's fucking crazy. Writing wasn't invented until the year 6600 in the Holocene calendar. The Bronze Age began around the year 6700. The first period of ancient Egypt began in about 6850. The Egyptian Old Kingdom was 7300 and something. The Middle Kingdom was 7800 and something. The New Kingdom was 8450 something. The Late Period was 9330 something. Eventually it was annexed by Rome in 9974. And also, to talk about Rome for a second, Rome was founded in 9248. It became a republic in 9492. Rome became an empire in 9972, and then the Roman Empire split into the Eastern and Western Roman Empires in the year 10,395. The Western Roman Empire fell in 10,476, and then the fall of Constantinople, which was basically the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire, didn't happen until 11,453. I know if you ultimately add up the numbers, this and the Gregorian calendar are saying the same thing essentially, but it doesn't feel the same emotionally. It feels like this whole thing is a story and we are part of it. Because you realize that if it's currently the year 12,026, Rome turning from a republic into an empire in the year 9,972 was not actually that long ago in the grand scheme of things. The end of World War II and the beginning of the modern world order feels like it was ages ago if you talk about it in the Gregorian calendar, but in the Holocene calendar, World War II ended in the year 11,945 and it's now 12,026. That was barely any time ago. That was very recently. I don't know, I just find this whole approach really cool. Now there is still a small problem with it. It's not really a huge problem, although it annoys me, and that's that since the idea for this particular calendar was thought up in the first place, we do now know slightly more accurately when the Holocene began, and it turns out the actual beginning of the Holocene was about the year 300 in the Holocene calendar, which does make it slightly lame, and we could correct for it, but then we don't just get to add a 1 at the beginning of the years that we already use, so that makes it a much harder sell to people. And also, what if we find out even more accurately in the future and we need to add back another 73 years to it or something? So yeah, it's a slight shame that we don't know exactly the date that the Holocene epoch began, but hey, nothing's perfect, I guess. I suppose we could try a different strategy, which is to just implement a new year 0 from a date which was recent enough that we know exactly what happened. Maybe it's just because I'm a fucking space autist, but I often think either the first person in space or maybe the first person on the moon would be a good starting point for the beginning of a new calendar. It's just the issue with that is in the same way that the Gregorian calendar having the birth of Jesus as the year 1 point is kind of biased towards specific specifically catering for the emotional needs of Christians, choosing a more recent event also just basically serves to jerk off whoever did the thing that we base the dating system on. Like, if we have a new calendar based on when humans first landed on the moon, the United States is just going to jack themselves off with that forever. If we base it on when the first human went into space, Russia's just going to jack themselves off with that forever. You know, it kind of becomes propaganda that, oh, we did something so amazing that the entire world had to change how time works to acknowledge how great we are. You know what I mean? It feels better when it's about all of humanity, but I can't really think of a better moment. Personally, I think the holocene is the best one. It's just a shame that we don't know the exact moment that it began. But for the sake of my own emotional needs, I was born in the holocene year 11,996, so I'm just going to call that the year 1, meaning it's currently the year 29 and you can fucking deal with it. But do you know what I have to deal with? My elite level supporters. Thunderbolt 22A10, who was born on October the 10th, 1582. Nomad Greg, whose watch watches him. Andrew Maul, who is as beautiful as he is mysterious. John Bejarano, who thinks the AD in 2026 AD stands for oh damn. JDK, who once counted to 13 trillion, lost where he was and had to start all over again. Mutantius Doom, who has a greater number of outfit combinations in his cupboard than he does the number of seconds in his life that have so far elapsed. Stormester Ritter, whose secret talent is throwing clocks at people. Nikita Lurie, who wrangles time for a living. Aaron Rowe, who prevents us from all time traveling into the far future by physically holding back time with his gigantic biceps. Bonk Chunk, who can tell what time it is by walking outside, licking his finger and holding it in the air for a second. And thanks to all my other supporters too. Don't forget to join the Patreon or the channel membership if you want to be featured in my video credits or chat on Discord. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.